New South Wales community is planning a vigil for first responders and the loved ones of those who died in a car crash just over a week ago. 3 people died after a 5-car crash near Lithgow on the state's central tablelands, with dozens of people flown to hospital. Lithgow's Mayor Marie Statham says it's been a challenging time for the community.
The many members of our community feel genuinely touched and saddened by the news on Saturday of the death of this young 11-year-old girl. So I think it's only fitting that our public has the opportunity to acknowledge and thank our first responders and have prayers said.
Comes amid growing calls for road safety reform following another fatal crash at a level crossing near the South Australian and New South Wales border as well. The rail freight operator Pacific National's demanding action from federal and state governments to hold a summit on level crossing safety and the messaging around it. So we thought this morning we'd catch up with Peter Fraser. He's the president and founder of Safer Australian Roads and Highways, also known as the Sarah Group, and he began that group after his daughter Sarah was killed on the Hume Highway south of Sydney. Peter joins us now. Morning to you, Peter.
Yeah, good morning to you, Tom.
Thanks for joining us. Last year was one of the worst years for road fatalities. I want to start there. In New South Wales alone, 351 fatalities last year. Do we know why?
Yeah, look, the major issues that we've got to contend with across not just New South Wales but the country is speed. More people are being killed because of speed, and distraction, of course, is an incredibly important component of that as well. But also the way that we build and maintain our roads. There are real issues associated with, for instance, we look at the terrible Lithgow crash, and I just wanted to, it's actually one of the people killed there is one of our people who live in the Blue Mountains here where I live. And as the Mayor of Lithgow said, this affects all communities, and I think that's a really important thing to say. But if the roads were also had wide line separation, as well as barriers and this sort of thing, which is being done, I've got to say, to a great extent in Victoria, and they are leading the way in this, then we actually stop those head-on collisions and run-off road collisions, which also are an incredibly important component of this. But there's lots of things that we can do as a nation, but we're not doing it.
Yeah, because is that part of the problem? I often think we speak a bit, Peter, particularly during this time of year, and there's always that focus on, obviously, drink driving, fatigue, speeding. No doubt, no one's denying they're contributing factors to road accidents. But do you think that, authorities are not necessarily aware of the fact that our roads just aren't properly and adequately designed? I mean, you look at some roads with, high speeds limits or no speed limits in Europe where they don't seem to have the same problems. Is enough attention being paid to the adequate design and the quality of our roads in Australia?
No, it's not. I think if we start to talk about the way that we build and maintain our roads, and if we start off with those high-speed roads, and I know you'd be very familiar with the M4 road, as I travel it every single week into town.
So for our national audience, just for our national audience, that's the motorway taking people from the Blue Mountains west of Sydney and into the CBD of Sydney. Yeah.
Yeah, 110 kilometres per hour for most of it, but we've got people travelling on that 140, 150 kilometres per hour, and we do nothing about it in terms of ensuring the safety of those people and getting them to slow down. We've got the ways and means of being able to change that. For instance, using average speed cameras, if we hang them from gantries across these major highways, that's a real incentive for people to actually slow down, because if it's an average speed, it's not just being used as a speed camera, but it measures the time that people travel over that distance. And
can I just ask you about that, though? Sorry to interrupt. But just once again, for our audience who don't know that road, the M4 major motorway in Sydney, that does have average speed cameras hanging from gantries, though. But is the issue that they're not actually used for your normal cars?
Well, that's one really important point, is that they're not used except for heavy vehicles. So, for instance, if I'm travelling along, there's a, say, point-to-point system running on the Federal Highway into Canberra, I can travel along that 250 kilometres an hour and I will not even be stopped, because of the fact that the average speed cameras are only identifying the registration numbers. What we should be doing is we should be saying, as a matter of course, we not only identify, but if a person's speeding, say, by 5 kilometres per hour over that speed limit, we immediately should be sending them a notification that they've been caught speeding, but we say if you do it again, what we'll do is we'll ensure that you get a speed ticket for that as well as the original one, but we'll waive at this stage as part of education.
Why are cars really excluded, though? Why? Sorry to interrupt again, but I'm just trying to get my head around why are they, if the technology's there, they are on the roads, as you said, the M4, the Federal Highway, they're there, not used for cars. Why? Why are cars excluded?
The New South Wales government, back about 9 years ago, actually had excluded the light vehicles from that. It's something we've been fighting against for literally the last 9 years. Secondly, with we thought that there might have been a change in that with a new government. There hasn't been. So, we've got a couple of things which can immediately be done. Using New South Wales again, just as a quick example, covert speed cameras. You'll see that they've got signs at 250 metres, at 100, and on top of the vehicle. So all that happens is people slow down as they approach it and accelerate after it.
Speed up after.
We're not changing behaviour. But in terms of the way that we build our roads, there's a thing called 3-star rating, which is the minimum that we should be doing. We can improve our roads by reducing speed limits, and I'm sure across the nation we've got people who recognise some of our regional roads are set at 100 kilometres per hour. When if you were to make a minor mistake, you run off, you'll hit a tree. I've seen, I've driven regional roads where the trees are actually lifting the fog line. We've got to start to look at these really simple things and say, what can we do to actually make those major improvements so we get everyone home safe?
Well, just on the issue of signage you mentioned a minute ago, and I take your point, people see that sign saying you're about to have your speed checked, they slow down and they speed up right after they pass the camera. But isn't there an argument there for visible policing as well, to have that signage, the cameras visible, to have the police, the radars, the cars visible on the road to spread that message too, that not everything should be covert?
Well, no, in actual fact, if you want to change behaviour, and it's proven if we look at the international research, there's no way putting signs in front of it, in front of vehicles actually changes behaviour, because all that people do is they recognise it. In fact, Google will tell you that there's a vehicle in front of a police car. What we've got to do is we've got to start to change people's driving behaviour, because right now people see it as their own right to be able to drive at any speed that they like. And we've got to say to people, when you're out on the road, imagine it's your own family on the road ahead. Imagine what you do. How would you change your driving behaviour? We've got to get people to drive so others survive, because everyone's got a right to get home safe to their loved ones every day without exception. 1,250 lives were lost across the nation in 2023. Yeah. We've committed as Australian governments to reduce the number of people killed down to 570 by the time we get to 2030. Right now, we should be below 970. All those people that were killed, 280, we're failing. It's as simple as we're failing. But there's lots of things that we can do to actually protect people so we get them home safe.
Do you think that there's
taking it seriously?
Indeed, and obviously, I mean, it's not working. Clearly, looking at the numbers alone, do you think that there's an issue of, I guess, cost and blame shifting between different levels of government when it comes to this?
Look, one of the things that a number of organisations, including the Australian Automobile Association, researchers and doctors have been saying that we've got to take responsibility both at federal and state level and start to say that we'll assess the outcome of the funding that we give according to the improvement in the safety statistics. We don't do that. The AAA right now, I've got to say it's been led very importantly by the Australian Automobile Association. We don't know all the data associated with our crashes. Do you know, we've got more than 40,000 people seriously injured every year in Australia, but we can't compare state to state to state. Yeah. We don't have that data because it's not provided. As you're well aware, Tom, 12 years ago, my beautiful daughter Sarah was killed. In that time, we've had 14,000 Australians killed and 500,000 people seriously injured in this nation. This is a true pandemic, and as a nation, we've got to take this seriously and say, what do we need to do to make those improvements? So, as I say, there are some really basic things that we can do. But we've got the mobile phone detection camera technology. It can be used not only for seatbelts, but for speeding as well. we've got to let people know that when they're out on the road, it's their responsibility to ensure the safety of all those on the road ahead. And each state and territory has to commit to that and make a major difference. We should not have, literally 14,000 people killed, and we forget about those names. Over the course of the year, we wouldn't even remember one.
And look, a very tough time of year for a lot of families affected by this. I imagine, Peter, yourself included, after losing Sarah and during the festive season. So thoughts with you and the family and everyone else affected. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks very much. And as it goes, Tom, one of the things I do ask for our state government ministers, we need to take this seriously, and I'll be following up with each of those ministers over the course of the next 2 months. And
we'll be catching up about that on the program, Peter. Thanks for joining us. Peter Fraser, there, President and founder of Safer Australian Roads and Highways, or the SARA Group.